news source. Paying of respects at the Washington National Cathedral as retired four-star General Colin Powell, the nation's first black Secretary of State and a leader across party lines, was laid to rest. The Bidens, the Obamas, and the Bushes all in attendance to celebrate his life and legacy. Opening arguments. The trial for the three white men charged with murdering Ahmaud Arbery begins in Georgia. The jogger pursued in a pickup, shot and killed. What we learned on day one about the defense's possible path forward. The Friday night fight on Capitol Hill as top Democrats abruptly postpone an expected House vote on President Biden's nearly $2 trillion Build Back Better legislation. Unable to close the gap between caucus progressives and moderates, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi telling reporters, "Welcome to my world." And the infrastructure bill also in jeopardy. The COVID-19 pill. Pfizer with a possible breakthrough, announcing an experimental new treatment taken after infection. And they say their studies suggest it can slash the risk for hospitalization and death. Well, we know tonight about when it could be available. The star quarterback in a vaccine controversy. Aaron Rodgers, unvaccinated and infected by COVID-19, defending himself, insisting he did not lie to the public what he said about not getting the shot. Saving tomorrow in the looming climate crisis facing a major American city right now. As Lake Michigan rises to historic levels and pounds the windy city, scraping away the Chicago shoreline.
That's all underwater.
It's all underwater. The
beach is underwater.
The beach is completely underwater.
The intensity of storms picking up. So what is Chicago doing to catch up to the problem? And the TikTok star shining a light on Mexico's Chichimeca culture, going viral in his quest to debunk the misconceptions about his indigenous community. Good evening, I'm Trevor Alt in for Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Right now, we are watching some late maneuvering on Capitol Hill as the president's domestic agenda is tested by divisions in his own caucus. But we're going to begin tonight with the much-awaited opening statements in the murder trial of three white men, including a father and son, who were accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery last year in Georgia. Prosecutors today showing cell phone video from that day in court, alleging Arbery was hunted down for 5 minutes and shot while on a jog, his death igniting outrage nationwide. Arbery's mother, who has already called the composition of the jury with just one black member very discouraging, breaking down today when the video was played. Attorneys for the defendants, Greg and Travis McMichaels, argued they believed Arbery was a burglar, that their clients recognized him from surveillance footage from a neighbor showing an alleged trespassing, and they claimed they acted in self-defense. There was also graphic body camera footage played from an early officer on the scene, and in it he can be heard saying of Arbery, "There is nothing I can do for this gentleman." ABC's Steve Osunsami leads us off.
It was the most painful moment during opening statements today when prosecutors played the violent cell phone video. Watching those last few minutes of Ahmaud Arbery's life led one juror to look down.
Mr. Arbery is under attack by all three of these men. Mr. Bryan tries to hit Mr. Arbery 1, 2, 3, 4 different times with his pickup truck. 4 different times with his pickup truck. Mr. Arbery is under attack. The McMichaels at this point in time, they decide they're going to take off.
On the other side of the South Georgia courtroom, the mother of the man who fired the fatal shot shook her head. And the other mother of the black victim let out a cry, saying it was her first time watching it all since her son was killed in February of last year.
A very wise person once said, "Don't assume the worst of another person's intentions until you actually know what's going on with them. Don't assume the worst with what they intend to do." But in this case, all three of these defendants did everything they did based on assumptions. Not on facts, not on evidence, on assumptions. And they made decisions in their driveways based on those assumptions that took a young man's life. and that is why we are here.
Ahmaud Arbery was killed last February after he was stopped by Gregory McMichael, his son Travis McMichael, and their neighbor William Roddy Bryant Jr.
What's your emergency? We got a string of records. I was with the neighborhood, and I just called down running into a house being built. Two houses down from me. When I turned around, she took off running into the house.
The young man's family says he was out jogging, but attorneys for the McMichaels say that Arbery is the same person seen walking around in these surveillance videos from a home under construction down the street from Travis McMichael's home, and that they were making a citizen's arrest under then Georgia law. Defense attorneys avoided the word race and focused on the word crime.
The case really begins months before in 2019. Because Satilla Shores was a neighborhood on edge. Crime had gone up. It wasn't violent crime. It was property crimes. The kind of crimes that are unsettling. The kind of crimes that are scary. Because you don't know who's coming onto your property, who's in your car ransacking it, who's breaking into your buildings, who's stealing your lawnmowers or your guns. And so the neighborhood was on edge. He sees Ahmaud Arbery through the windows in Larry English's house. He doesn't know what he's doing in there. Greg McMichael sees him tearing, hauling down the road. And he knows what's up. And he goes inside and he tells Travis, the guy's running down the street.
Calling the victim a neighborhood intruder and a plunderer, even though he's never seen stealing anything, at the open construction site at the center of the case.
Within a split second, Ahmaud Arbery makes a left, not a right. Makes a left and is on Travis, such that Travis has no choice but to fire his weapon in self-defense. Because at that point, it's his life or Ahmaud Arbery's life.
Prosecutors also shared a graphic police camera video today of the blood and the body in the street. One of the jurors used her notebook to cover her eyes.
And Steve Osunsami joins us now. Steve, something that's definitely going to come up in this trial is the citizen's arrest law that was in effect at the time of this shooting. How is that going to come into play?
Well, it's really the basis for the reason for this stop. If you talk to the prosecution, they'll tell you that there was really no proof that Ahmaud Arbery committed any crime. Certainly no felony. If anything, he was trespassing at the worst. And they're also going to tell you that, you know, all of these allegations that he was sort of seen on this property, there's no one from the police or any of the person who owns the home who says that he took anything. So this is going to be a big part of the case. And one thing I want to add is that, you know, one of the things that the prosecution is underlining is that the whole reason why he seems suspicious in the first place is because of color. That is what frames all of this, and that's going to be what jurors have to sort of parse. Is there enough real suspicion? Is there enough of a real crime that was justified for these three men, in particular the father and son, to have truly believed to have begun this chase after this young black man? Trevor?
Already in day one, this case raising so many questions, not just about the shooting, but about our culture as well. Steve Osunsami, thank you.
Absolutely.
And because there is so much more to dig into in this trial, we now want to bring in ABC News contributor Brian Buckmeyer, who is also with the Law and Crime Network. Brian, thanks for joining us. Let's start right out of the gate. The prosecution showed that disturbing video of Ahmaud Arbery's final moments, and disturbing to the point that even one juror covered her eyes when this was being played. We've heard so much about how this is a nearly all-white jury. What do you think is the prosecution's strategy here, potentially playing to their emotions?
So absolutely. So what we're taught, at least in law school, there's three different ways that you can really convey information to a jury. That's through logic, ethics, or emotion. And I think what the prosecution is doing is starting off the first step of this case with that emotion, playing to the part that they let them know why we're here. Now, the prosecution in their opening statement said that we're here because of assumptions as well as what they called driveway decisions. And those assumptions and driveway decisions led to this video. They're going to start off with the climax here, that being Ahmaud Arbery on the ground when the first officer responds with his body-worn camera, seeing him with 3 shots after the shotgun went off. One of them hitting him in the torso and also in the hand. Another one actually missed him, according to what they said. And the third one hitting him under the left armpit. And what we're seeing is the aftermath of that. Ahmaud Arbery on his stomach, then rolled onto his back. And as you said, one of the jurors couldn't even look, had to cover their eyes. And Wanda Cooper-Jones, the mother of Ahmaud Arbery, actually gave out a deep and emotional cry during that time. And what we also heard was Ahmaud Arbery's father stepped out of the courtroom at one point in time as well. This seemed to be emotional for all parties in this case. And what I think the major thing is for the prosecution is thinking about the timing. It's Friday. The jury is going to have to sit with that emotional viewing of that body for the rest of today, Saturday, Sunday, and I think the hope is that the emotion stays with them and that the defense cannot crawl their way back into this case to try to disprove any elements of this case.
I mean, that video is difficult to watch even if you have no connection to this case. Certainly cannot blame Ahmaud Arbery's family. Of course, playing to emotions, Brian, can go both directions. I'm sure that the defense is going to be doing similar things with their arguments. What do you think they are hoping is going to resonate with these jurors?
So the defense actually started off with a little bit of emotion. We heard from Bob Rubin, the defense attorney for Travis McMichael, who started off with the opening statements, talking about Travis McMichael as a father of a 3-year-old, as well as a U.S. Coast Guard. He even brought up the fact, which was interesting, because it kind of plays to the idea that Travis McMichael may need to testify, because a lot of the points that he brought up the idea that Travis McMichael himself, when he took out that 12-gauge Remington pump shotgun, thought of his younger child at the time, thinking that he was going to die in that moment, even though Ahmaud Arbery, we all know, didn't have a weapon on him. The defense brought up the emotional aspect that days prior to that February 23rd, 2020 emotional day where Ahmaud Arbery died, that Travis McMichael actually confronted Ahmaud Arbery in the proximity of that construction site and believed, because he says Ahmaud Arbery reached for his left pocket, that he had a weapon, trying to give a justification for why they followed him with weapons, and also that emotional aspect of Travis McMichael fearing for his own life, something that's going to play into the self-defense aspect for the defense.
Do you think Travis is going to testify? Would that surprise you?
It wouldn't. I actually would assume that he would. Now, I don't say this for most cases. As a public defender myself, I say that, hey, you're never going to know that my client is going to testify until the final moment. But the reason why I'm thinking, that it shocked me, at least when I listened to the opening statement, that Travis McMichael could testify is because a lot of the information that the defense attorney, Bob Rubin, brought in is information that only Travis McMichael can testify to himself. We often say as defense attorneys, you want to undersell and overperform. So if the defense attorney is coming out and saying that Travis McMichael is standing there with that 12-gauge shotgun and Ahmaud Arbery is running at him from 20 yards away, and that Travis McMichael is thinking about his 3-year-old son at that time, the only way he's going to get that into evidence and not be an argument, in my mind, is if Travis McMichael testifies. If he doesn't testify, then he oversold this case and underperformed, and that would be a deadly combination. I don't see how he gets all these arguments in without Travis testifying.
I mean, there's already so many eyes on this case, but that testimony especially would have everyone watching. I am curious, Brian, we talked about this video and how emotionally charged it is. Both the defense and the prosecution were stressing that it doesn't tell the whole story.
Absolutely. So the death of Ahmaud Arbery cannot just be told in the few moments and when he's lying there on the ground. For both the defense and the prosecution, they're going back some days, even months prior to the incident. For the defense, you heard in their opening statements that this was a community that was rife with petty thefts and trespassing and even some burglaries. What I found interesting, though, was Travis McMichael's defense attorney said that some of the neighborhood kids would come into the construction site and steal planks of wood so they can drive their bikes over. It appeared that Larry English was okay with that, but the Ahmaud Arbery, who was seemingly just perusing through, they had some issue with that. I think that's something the prosecution can really hang their hat on.
I mean, so much of these arguments, Brian, sound like societal arguments rather than this just individual case. This is going to be something that so many people are tuning into. We appreciate your insights, Brian Buckmeyer. And now to Washington, where President Biden is hoping for a major victory for his domestic agenda. His trillion-dollar bipartisan infrastructure bill has already passed the Senate, and House Democratic leaders today are pushing for a vote to get the bill to the president's desk. But amid all the activity on Capitol Hill, there is still a lot of uncertainty about what will actually get done as progressives push for a vote on both bills. Here's ABC's Rachel Scott.
Good morning.
Tonight, President Biden could be on the verge of a major victory. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announcing the House will vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill before the day is done. Pelosi urging reluctant progressives to vote yes.
I hope that it would weigh heavily on them, that American people want to see progress in their communities. It's very important that we pass it. So I hope that they would make a judgment on the merits of the legislation.
Progressives have refused to pass that infrastructure bill unless the House also votes on the president's massive social spending legislation. Tonight, Pelosi hoping to call their bluff by scheduling the vote. After she spoke, the Progressive Caucus huddling behind closed doors. In the middle of the meeting, President Biden calling the chair of the caucus, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. She rushed out of the room to take his call. Earlier today, Biden demanding that Congress pass the bill, quote, right now.
Let's get this done.
The $1 trillion infrastructure bill would repair the nation's roads and bridges and improve rural internet access. It includes new clean water initiatives and the largest investment ever in public transit. It would also install electric vehicle charging stations across the country. It is estimated to create more than 500,000 jobs.
Do you have 218 votes to pass it?
We'll see, won't we?
And Rachel Scott joins us now from the Capitol. Rachel, we are once again back with this simplest of questions that you've been reporting for months. Where do things stand now on getting a vote?
Well, Trevor, House progressives have been meeting behind closed doors for more than 2 hours. At this point, one source tells me at least 20 members of their caucus would vote against the bipartisan infrastructure package tonight. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she can only afford to lose 3 Democratic votes. The speaker has said she does not bring bills to the floor to lose. And at this point, she's under immense pressure to pull this one off. We're expecting this to be a very long night, Trevor.
Absolutely. Rachel Scott from the Capitol. Thank you so much. Next to the major development in the fight against COVID, Pfizer revealing new data on its COVID treatment pills. The drug company says these new pills significantly reduce the risk of being hospitalized or dying. And the announcement comes as President Biden's new vaccine mandates are getting pushback from more than 20 states. Whit Johnson has the latest.
Tonight, a potential new weapon in the fight against COVID. Vaccine maker Pfizer announcing early trial results of its antiviral pill show it cut the risk of hospitalization or death by 89%.
It's really exciting to know that there might be an option to provide to patients that could help save their life.
The drug, called Paxlovid, was given to high-risk patients within 3 days of developing COVID symptoms. It comes just a month after Merck reported its new antiviral drug cut the risk of hospitalization or death in half.
While the news around these pills is incredibly exciting, this does not in any way replace the need for vaccination. The vaccines still represent our safest and most effective way to reduce risk from COVID.
Unlike monoclonal antibody treatments, which are given through an IV at a hospital or a clinic, the antiviral pills could be taken at home over 5 days, soon after a person tests positive for COVID. Merck's drug is on track for potential authorization by the end of the year, Pfizer's by early 2022.
Once we get through this Delta wave of infection over the course of the next 2 months, I think that this therapeutic and the other innovations that we've seen coming to market really mark the end of the pandemic for the United States.
And Whit Johnson joins us now. Whit, of course, this is a pretty big weekend ahead for parents of 5 to 11-year-olds finally getting their kids vaccinated at pharmacies. Where are they going to be available?
Yeah, Trevor, both Walgreens and CVS will start offering the COVID shot for kids over the weekend. Plus, parents can now search from 10,000 locations across the country on the federal website, vaccines.gov, or call their pediatrician. The full rollout for younger children expected to ramp up next week. Trevor?
A lot of parents been waiting a long time for this. Whit Johnson, thank you. We turn now to the nation paying its final respects to General Colin Powell at Washington National Cathedral today. Past presidents, secretaries of state, and his family gathering to remember a trailblazer who dedicated his life to public service. His son saying his journey was an American journey. Here's ABC's chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz.
Tonight, the nation celebrating the life of a trailblazing American patriot, a warrior, a diplomat, the first black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the first black Secretary of State, Colin Powell. His former deputy and close friend Richard Armitage, who talked to Powell every day for decades, says it was always about family.
Never in 40 years do I recall his ever failing to either start or end his day by telling what Alma was doing, what Michael and Jane were doing, what Linda was doing, what Anne Marie and Francis were doing, what the grandkids were doing.
Colin Powell's son, Michael, pausing to touch his father's coffin before sharing memories of life with his father.
My sisters and I were raised under the stars of the storied general we eulogize today. But our family life was unregimented. No morning reveille or marching drills. It was a warm and joyous and loving home, anchored by our strong and graceful mother, Alma.
Madeleine Albright, Powell's predecessor at State, joked that Powell was a lot more popular than she was, saying he was not only incredibly cool, but a remarkable leader.
I sat in many meetings with Colin where I could almost hear his eyes roll. When it was his turn to speak, he was brilliant at bringing over-the-moon claims down to earth and distilling what truly mattered from what did not.
Michael Powell spoke of the time his father had a flat tire and a disabled veteran stopped to help him.
The young vet sheepishly asked if he could take a quick selfie. But my dad took time to ask about his family. A few days later, to thank him for his help, my father invited the vet and his entire family over to the house for dinner.
Inside that cathedral today, there was unity and warmth. Presidents Obama and Bush embracing Alma Powell, a long hug from Hillary Clinton for the wife who Powell always said was his rock, his inspiration.
And Martha Raddatz joins us now outside National Cathedral. Martha, Powell's son today also had a challenge for the country in his father's memory. What did he have to say?
He did, Trevor. He said, to honor his legacy, I hope we do more than consign him to the history books. I hope we recommit ourselves to being a nation where we are still making his kind.
And Martha, I would love to just get your personal thoughts on this as somebody who has covered Colin Powell for so many years. What stood out today with you in this celebration of his life and his years of service?
You know, Trevor, what I loved about today, it wasn't just Colin Powell, the warrior, or the diplomat. It was Colin Powell, the father, the husband, the grandfather. Even Richard Armitage, who worked so long with him at the State Department and who's been a lifelong friend, he wanted to talk about Colin Powell's family. He was a family man at heart, and he was a soldier at heart, Trevor.
Person truly known for the multidimensional facets of his life. Martha Raddatz, thank you. And when we come back, NFL superstar Aaron Rodgers, he's on the sidelines with COVID. Now he is speaking out as he's revealed to be unvaccinated. What he said today that's created quite the uproar. The Spanish teacher found murdered and 2 students accused of beating her to death. What we know about the investigation. But up next, our climate series Saving Tomorrow continues. Our journey to Chicago. It's a city among the most at risk in the U.S. to climate change. We'll explain why.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
Okay, here we go.
1 week.
7 days.
Dozens of concerts.
Thousands of country music fans.
And me.
I'm gonna show you everything.
Spend a week with us.
We've got something very special for you.
1 week in the life of country music stars. You won't believe what our cameras will catch.
Here we go.
Backstage Pass. Countdown to the CMAs.
This Monday night at 10/9 Central on ABC.
Do you think that Michael Jordan would be as successful without you?
Good Morning America Monday.
It seemed like you and Michael kind of had a love-hate relationship.
Scottie Pippen exclusive.
You say you feel like he left a lot of your story out of The Last Dance on purpose. Why did you feel that way?
It's the interview everyone will be talking about.
You call Michael Jordan selfish. Why is that?
Scottie Pippen, Michael Strahan.
How do you want to be remembered?
That's the greatest of all time.
That's a great answer.
Monday morning, only on Good Morning America.
In time, spring will turn to fall.
From the global resources of ABC News. From morning through daytime, evening, late night, 24/7. The race against time. Climate crisis, saving tomorrow. What can we do now? The groundbreaking reports all this November on ABC News.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you? Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
Earlier this year, we saw Hurricane Ida travel all the way from New Orleans up to the Northeast, causing devastating damage to cities and towns with infrastructure unprepared for that onslaught of rain. But extreme weather made worse by climate change can impact every city, not just the ones on the coast. And Chicago is one city now facing the consequences of extreme weather, including the threat of rising waters from Lake Michigan. ABC's Alex Perez reports tonight from the Windy City.
Chicago, the gem of the Great Lakes, now being tested like never before by the unprecedented impacts of climate change. Angry storms drenching that famous skyline, more and more extreme weather pounding the Windy City like this destructive flash flooding last year. Or this record-high flooding back in 2013, snarling traffic, turning basements into swimming pools, swallowing even the earth in some places, and raising Lake Michigan to levels never imagined. Those directly in the path of these sometimes destructive waves find themselves confronting a stark realization: the climate is harder to predict, and the adored shoreline in some areas is vanishing.
Sometimes where we're standing, you have water.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This, as I said, this was our patio. This was all grass.
Jer Slaughter lives here on the south side of Chicago, overlooking the city's famed Lakeshore Drive. Believe it or not, her backyard here used to be a 25-foot-long beach.
Some people talk about, climate change is this theory, it's in books, but is this climate change in action?
Oh, baby, you better know it is. It absolutely it is.
Chicago was built on swampland, early residents elevating the city to build and stay dry. But the changing climate is putting that foundation to the test, creating serious problems. The ground beneath them, the shoreline, all slowly eroding, in some areas disappearing.
If you look to the north of us, that was our beach, and 25 feet of sandy beach. And now it's about to hit our parking lot.
Now that's all underwater now.
It's all underwater.
The beach is underwater.
The beach is completely underwater.
University of Chicago environmental economist Amir Gina notes the effects of climate change, including more frequent heavy rainstorms and more stifling heat, are as much a threat in the middle of the country as they are on the coast.
When it does rain, it's getting more intense. And I think in terms of the impacts of that, it's straining the aging infrastructure of the city. A city that was built to not deal with these really intense bursts of rainfall is suddenly having to deal with, a few days worth of rainfall falling in an hour. And what does that do to the sewers? What does that do to people's basements?
These once-in-a-100-year events are now happening more frequently, not only threatening lives, but also straining local governments and budgets.
It's a very expensive problem to deal with, to try and, to some extent, rebuild the city.
The city has been playing catch-up and is trying to repair some of this damage, but because of the long-term changes to Chicago's weather landscape, the city's engineers say Chicago's infrastructure must adapt.
It appears that things are changing,
and the climate is changing, and we're looking towards evaluating that, predicting what the extremes will be in the future so that we can prepare for those conditions and design resilient structures.
Millions are already being spent to climate-proof some of Chicago's existing infrastructure and massive expansions to these sewage systems.
The reservoir here, the world's largest, officials say. Now, I want you to take a look behind me here. This is the older portion, and if you look way on this side, this is the newer portion they're still working on. Once combined, the massive hole could fit up to 22 Soldier Field stadiums and hold some 10 billion gallons of water.
These quarries are the last line of defense for Chicago's sewers to help manage rain runoff.
And just recently, it was all the way up at the very top there, you said,
Yes,
right?
it was just all the way up just a couple days ago.
Kevin Fitzpatrick is the assistant director at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, the organization charged with the Herculean task of keeping drinking water clean, treating sewage, and making sure the city doesn't end up underwater. Just 1 inch of rainfall leads to about 16 billion gallons of water.
Those sewers have finite capacity and weren't designed to handle some of the storms that we're seeing today.
He says these tunnels and expansions are expensive, take years to build, and are not a long-term solution.
And the goalpost is moving. We need to always be prepared for what could be coming.
And what could be coming are more drenching storms.
May 17th, 2020, it went to a level we never expected to see.
Tyrone Valley is lockmaster at the Chicago Harbor Lock, which controls how much water moves between the Chicago River and Lake Michigan. These gates are key to keeping floodwaters out of Chicago during heavy rain. For now, he trusts the system to work as intended, despite climate change.
I have trust in our system. I have trust in the McCook quarry. And I know what we can do here.
But others who've come face to face with climate change aren't so optimistic.
It is worrisome to us. As it is, we spent this gravel and all the stuff that you see in preparing to ward off the storms cost us over $500,000. That was money that was earmarked for repairs to the building.
Back in Slaughter's neighborhood here on Chicago's South Side, the fight is already at their doorstep.
It's a battle, it seems like.
It is a battle. That's exactly what you can call it. It is a battle. Us against Mother Nature.
Alex Perez, ABC News, Chicago.
Our thanks to Alex Perez for us from Chicago. And on the subject of climate, we want to head back out to Glasgow now with more on that global climate meeting that we've been following all week. Our Maggie Rulli is there. She's been tracking it all. Maggie, what was the agenda today? I know that we've seen world leaders there, but today the protesters came out too, huh?
Yeah, Trevor, it was actually incredible to see. This entire square was filled with thousands of people. It was Youth Day here at COP26, so it was young people out in full force, led by Fridays for Future. The headline speaker at this event was Greta Thunberg. And Trevor, I have to tell you, I've never seen her speak in person before, and witnessing this was incredible. The entire crowd of thousands went still. Everyone was quiet, just listening to her, hanging on her every word, listening as she said COP26 is a failure. Now, among those protesters was someone we met up with, a man named Eric. He's 19 years old. He traveled here to Glasgow from Kenya as part of the UNICEF Climate Advocates. And it was incredible to talk to him because he told us, he made it all the way here. But despite making that trip, he still feels like he's being ignored. Take a listen.
I am young, not stupid. I can understand all of this. It's just that it's deliberately exclusionary. I feel like they should make more efforts to make it more accessible, especially to the youth and people from the global south, so that they can understand what these policies mean to them, because they bear the impact.
And Trevor, this is what we're hearing from everyone, really. They will keep showing up, keep being loud until they're finally heard. Trevor?
I mean, the question now is, will they finally be heard? Maggie, what's on tap for next week?
Yeah, well, it's still a big week here. You know, we're kind of at the halftime of COP26, and next week is when negotiators are really going to dig in, try to fulfill on those promises, try to come back with real plans. In some cases, we're running out of time. These plans have to be solidified, and we're also really looking forward towards Monday next week. That's when former President Barack Obama is going to be in town. We know while he's here, he's also going to be meeting with youth leaders in this climate protest. So, you know, again, this focus on young people is something that's going to continue into next week of the summit as well, Trevor.
They have the big names, but will they come up with some big answers? Maggie Rulli, always a pleasure. Thanks for being here. And still ahead here on Prime, the Houston mother back in court after her 3 sons were found abandoned near their dead 8-year-old brother. We're also learning more about that deadly shooting at a popular resort in Cancun. And this weekend, it is once again time to change your clocks. We'll take a look by the numbers. But first, our tweet of the day, an announcement 40 years in the making. ABBA is out with a new album.
That if there is a show, we would need a couple of new songs to go with it.
Okay, here we go.
1 week.
7 days. Dozens of concerts.
Thousands of country music fans.
And me.
I'm gonna show you everything.
Spend a week with us.
We've got something very special for you.
1 week in the life of country music stars. You won't believe what our cameras will catch.
Here we go.
Backstage Pass. Countdown to the CMAs.
This Monday night at 10/9 Central on ABC.
Do you think that Michael Jordan would be as successful without you?
Good Morning America Monday.
It seemed like you and Michael kind of had a love-hate relationship.
Scottie Pippen exclusive.
You say you feel like he left a lot of your story out of The Last Dance on purpose. Why did you feel that way?
It's the interview everyone will be talking about.
You called Michael Jordan selfish. Why is that?
Scottie Pippen, Michael Strahan.
How do you want to be remembered?
That's the greatest of all time.
That's a great answer.
Monday morning, only on Good Morning America.
In time, spring will turn to fall.
From the global resources of ABC News. From morning through daytime, evening, late night, 24/7. The race against time. Climate crisis, saving tomorrow. What can we do now? The groundbreaking reports all this November on ABC News.
Right now, with so much at stake, Sunday mornings, this is the place. Taking on all the tough questions. Straightforward reporting. No spin, no hype, no bull. See why Sunday mornings, more and more Americans are now turning first to ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos.
Welcome to This Week.
When you wake up in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, darling, I'll be by your side. I'll be there by your side. I'll be everything you wanted. I'll be there by your side. If you need a light to shine in, hold up your hand, let the stars shoot again, let the light shine in through the dark.
Good Morning America.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but winter is coming, and that means the end of daylight saving time. On Sunday, we're going to fall back, giving us an extra hour of sleep, but of course, now it means earlier sunsets as well. So here's a look by the numbers. All but 2 U.S. states, Hawaii and most of Arizona, observe daylight saving time. But 19 states have passed legislation or resolutions to end the time change if Congress were to allow it. And that would be enormously popular. 75% of Americans would prefer not to switch their clocks back and forth, according to a recent AP poll. Now, daylight saving time began in 1918 during World War I as an effort to save energy and resources for the war, but the idea for it was first mentioned by Benjamin Franklin as a joke. Today, daylight saving time only reduces our primary energy consumption by 0.02%, according to an Energy Department study. And at the same time, a number of other studies have shown the time change comes with negative health effects like disruption to our circadian rhythms, mood changes, sleep deprivation, and a potential risk of heart attack and stroke. And you might have noticed it's daylight saving time, not savings. We've been saving the daylight, not getting a discount on it. We still have a ton to get to here on Prime. The skydivers jumping from a plane as it began to stall. You have to see the images. Thanksgiving is getting closer, and some of the things that are usually easy to find may not be this year. We'll have some tips, and why some astronauts were told, be prepared to put on a diaper. But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
It's an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, here we go.
1 week.
7 days. Dozens of concerts.
Thousands of country music fans.
And me.
I'm gonna show you everything.
Spend a week with us.
We've got something very special for you.
1 week in the life of country music stars. You won't believe what our cameras will catch.
Here we go.
Backstage Pass. Countdown to the CMAs.
This Monday night at 10/9 Central on ABC.
Do you think that Michael Jordan would be as successful without you?
Good Morning America Monday.
It seemed like you and Michael kind of had a love-hate relationship.
Scottie Pippen exclusive.
You say you feel like he left a lot of your story out of The Last Dance on purpose. Why did you feel that way?
It's the interview everyone will be talking about.
You called Michael Jordan selfish. Why is that?
Scottie Pippen, Michael Strahan.
How do you want to be remembered?
That's the greatest of all time.
That's a great answer.
Monday morning, only on Good Morning America.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you?
Can I hug you?
Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run with.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
Pfizer saying early trial results of its antiviral COVID pills shows the risk of hospitalization or death is reduced by 89%. More than 1,200 people included in the study were considered at high risk for developing severe COVID and started taking the pills within 3 days of developing COVID symptoms. Meanwhile, opposition to the Biden administration's new vaccine mandate covering 2/3 of the American workforce continues to grow, sparking potential legal action from 26 states.
It is unbelievable that the federal government would issue such an unlawful order.
The new workplace COVID rules, which will be enforced starting January 4th, applies to businesses with more than 100 employees who must get the COVID shot or be subject to weekly testing.
We know that vaccines absolutely save lives, and we know that mandates work.
The mother accused in the House of Horrors case in Houston was back in court. A judge raised Gloria Williams' bond from $900,000 to more than $1.5 million.
We can't seek no bond in this case per the Texas Constitution.
Williams is accused of abandoning her 3 sons in an apartment with the decomposing body of their 8-year-old brother. Her boyfriend now charged with that child's murder. Police made the gruesome discovery earlier this month.
These two Iowa teenagers charged as adults with murdering a teacher at their own high school.
I was really shocked when I heard that. It doesn't seem real. It feels like something that would happen in TV.
Authorities say 16-year-olds Jeremy Goodale and Willard Miller allegedly killed 66-year-old Fairfield High School Spanish teacher Noema Graber. Her remains discovered at this park Wednesday. Her body, according to court documents, appeared to have suffered head trauma and was found concealed under a tarp, wheelbarrow, and railroad ties.
I got the news while I was at work, and I'm just like, wow. Like, I still am in shock. I cannot believe it.
The criminal complaint revealing authorities got a tip from an associate of the two teenagers who were allegedly discussing the crime in social media messages.
A targeted shooting near a resort in Cancun, Mexico, resulted in the death of 2 drug dealers. The shooting, believed to be gang-related. 4 Americans were injured. 1 is hospitalized in stable condition.
I heard a whole bunch of popping noise and someone yelled out, "Shooter."
Hyatt Via Riviera Cancun guests and hotel staff sheltering in place, some hiding in rooms and barricading the doors. Military personnel seen walking around the property. James Tella and his friend hid under some pool chairs as the shots broke out. He recalls seeing a man with a gun walk past him.
I just thought, I don't want to dry underneath a patio chair.
Police say the gang members escaped by motor boat, and so far no arrests have been made.
President Biden praised the October jobs report. The Labor Department shows more than 500,000 jobs were created last month. The president says there were also revisions to the prior months.
Job growth over the prior 2 months, August and September, was nearly 250,000 more jobs than previously thought. In total, the job creation in the first full 9 months of my administration is about 5.6 million new jobs, a record for any new president.
Yes, there is still a supply chain issue, but companies are trying to do everything they can to get around that.
The unemployment rate fell last month to 4.6%, and wages went up.
It doesn't take an astronaut to fix a toilet, but these astronauts probably wish they had a plumber.
For maximum dynamic pressure.
The crew readying their return from the International Space Station have been informed the toilet on their SpaceX Dragon spacecraft is out of order. Apparently, the toilet was leaking urine into the walls. Rather than holding it, they've been encouraged to resort to Plan B, using the undergarments inside their spacesuits. It's unclear how many hours the return trip could take, one astronaut calling the adjustment suboptimal.
Well, prosecutors say they will need more time to review the sex crime case against former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, telling a judge it could be, quote, potentially defective. They claim a local Albany sheriff unilaterally filed the forcible touching complaint without including a sworn affidavit from the alleged victim. A Cuomo spokesman accuses the sheriff of seeking headlines and not justice. The sheriff disputes that assertion, saying he handled this like every other investigation. Next tonight, to the future NFL Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers star quarterback, the firestorm he has created with his first public comments after testing positive with COVID. The quarterback confirmed he is not vaccinated, and he lashed out at what he calls the, quote, woke mob. ABC's Ariel Reshef has the details.
This weekend, Aaron Rodgers will not be playing football after testing positive for COVID months after saying he was, quote, immunized.
Are you vaccinated, and what's your stance on vaccinations?
Yeah, I've been immunized. You know, there's guys on the team that haven't been vaccinated. I think it's a personal decision. I'm not going to judge those guys.
Today, for the first time, he's acknowledging he never got vaccinated and calling the controversy surrounding him a witch hunt.
First of all, I didn't lie in the initial press conference. During that time, it was a very, witch hunt that was going on across the league, where everybody in the media was so concerned about who was vaccinated.
ESPN reporting that Rodgers has been treated by the NFL as an unvaccinated player since the beginning of the season.
My daily routine is the routine of an unvaccinated person.
The reigning NFL MVP citing an allergy to an ingredient in the mRNA Pfizer and Moderna vaccines and saying he didn't want to get the Johnson & Johnson shot. Rodgers claiming he followed all league protocol, testing daily and masking around teammates.
Everybody has their own story and their own issues and their own reasons for doing things. I made a choice that was in my best interest. You might respect it, you might hate it.
And Trevor, Rodgers says that he had some symptoms on Tuesday, but he's now feeling better. But he has been placed on the COVID-19 reserve list, which is why he will sit out this weekend's big game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Trevor?
Ariel Reshef. Ariel, thank you. And here at ABC News, we cover a lot of quote-unquote mid-air scares. Mid-air scare does not even begin to describe the story that we're about to show you. A skydiving plane stalled mid-air, and the skydivers were not the only ones that were spiraling to the ground. Here's ABC's Gio Benitez with the details.
A routine skydive turned into a harrowing ordeal as a plane loses control mid-jump. It all began 16,000 feet up in the air when these skydivers opened their jump door, preparing to make the ultimate leap. But suddenly, the plane starts to stall just as the first group lets go of the aircraft. It begins descending quickly towards the ground. One other jumper scrambles to get out, leaving 4 jumpers still inside with a pilot. As it falls, the plane narrowly missing the first group of jumpers. One of those jumpers was Bernard Jans van Rensburg, who took the death-defying video and later wrote, "The moment was surreal, and I could not believe what I was seeing. Everything happened in slow motion, and I remember thinking, am I really seeing the plane spinning nose down next to us?" The video shows Van Rensburg scrambling to get his bearings in the air, looking for his team, finding them practicing their pre-planned formations. Miraculously, the plane made a safe landing, and no one was hurt.
A video just unbelievable. Our thanks to Gio Benitez for that report. We are exactly 20 days away from Thanksgiving, and companies are warning some turkeys and some sides may be harder to find this year. So we reached out to experts to find out what you can expect, and we have some tips on what you can do. It's arguably the most anticipated meal of the year, Thanksgiving dinner. But this year, like Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving, you may have to trim your list of trimmings.
What kind of a Thanksgiving dinner is this? Where's the turkey, Chuck?
Top turkey seller Butterball says it doesn't expect an overall gobbler shortage, but if you're hunting for a smaller bird, they could be tough to find. And it's not just the main dish at risk of running afoul. For your cranberry sides, Ocean Spray tells ABC it's committed to meeting customer demand, but experienced a variety of supply chain challenges like aluminum can shortages, transportation, and other factors. That's a trend playing out in every supermarket aisle.
Every time I go food shopping, my food bill every week is up like $30 to $40 from what it used to be.
According to the Wall Street Journal, some supermarkets started placing orders in February to meet November demand. But even so, market research company IRI says some staples might be hard to come by, and even if you can find them, with food prices increasing nearly 4% this year, it could cost you more than ever to keep your family stuffed.
Refrigerated pies, the bakery pies, liquid gravy. These are products that are a little less than ideal in terms of in-stock positions. Many of the Thanksgiving items are also running around 5 to 10% higher than what they were last year.
So what's the best way to avoid winging it this Thanksgiving? The store's advice is simple.
Get there early. It's going to be some shortages.
And still to come tonight, the TikTokers trying to educate others about indigenous people. Stay with us.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back. We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
Okay, here we go.
1 week.
7 days. Dozens of concerts.
Thousands of country music fans.
And me.
I'm gonna show you everything.
Spend a week with us.
We've got something very special for you.
1 week in the life of country music stars. You won't believe what our cameras will catch.
Here we go.
Backstage Pass. Countdown to the CMAs.
This Monday night at 10/9 Central on ABC.
Do you think that Michael Jordan would be as successful without you?
Good Morning America Monday.
It seemed like you and Michael kind of had a love-hate relationship.
Scottie Pippen exclusive.
You say you feel like he left a lot of your story out of The Last Dance on purpose. Why did you feel that way?
It's the interview everyone will be talking about.
You called Michael Jordan selfish. Why is that?
Scottie Pippen, Michael Strahan.
How do you want to be remembered?
That's the greatest of all time.
That's a great answer.
Monday morning, only on Good Morning America.
The ladies you love, the hottest topics happening now. There's only one place to find it all.
You guys are having the hard conversations. I love The View.
The most watched #1 daytime talk show is The View. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
Let's do this.
When you wake up in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, darling, I'll be by your side. I'll be there by your side. I'll be everything you wanted. I'll be there by your side. If you need a light to shine it, hold up your hand, let the stars shoot again, let the light shine in through the dark.
Good Morning America.
More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source.
Our next guest rose to fame on TikTok, where he uses his platform to educate his followers on indigenous Chichimeca culture and history while advocating for awareness of injustices past and present. And his name is Juan Guerrero Maya. He's joining us right now. Juan, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Very happy you guys decided to invite me for Native American Heritage Month.
Of course, very happy to have you. We know you are very popular on TikTok, and you have really been educating a lot of people. One of your videos has more than 5 million views, where you go from jeans and a T-shirt to your regalia, your traditional attire, which you're wearing right now. So why don't we start off with that? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's the significance of that? How do you feel every time you put that on?
So whenever I put on my regalia, I feel very, very powerful. There's a lot of deep meaning into what we are wearing right now. For example, the penacho I'm wearing right now, whenever we dance to our traditional music, we're transmitting energy over to our heads, and that energy is going over to our feathers. So for that reason, there's a lot of significance behind our regalia. You can see the markings in my face, where I'm embodying the spirits of my great-grandmother, who was a curandera. She was a healer.
I know that TikTok maybe typically is associated with short dances or entertainment. Obviously, this is much deeper for you. What led you to start using TikTok to try to get your message out?
So what led me to start using TikTok was the misconceptions that I often found within our own communities. I think a lot of our communities, a lot of our Latino brothers often think that they're totally disconnected from their indigenous roots. And I started TikTok for that exact reason. I wanted to let people know that they are not disconnected from their roots. If anything, our indigenous roots are very much engraved in what we know today as Mexican culture. So for that reason, I feel the necessity to educate people and let them know that our ancestors are still looking up on us, and they are very, very proud of what we're doing.
Let's talk about those misconceptions that you brought up, because we want to use this platform too to do the same thing. Is there something that you encounter frequently that you maybe would like to correct or educate people on while we have you here?
Yes, correct. So a lot of there's this idea going around that we Mexicans don't necessarily belong in certain territories, but in our Native communities, we don't necessarily believe in this idea of physical borders. Our brothers are anywhere from the southern part of the Americas to the highest point of the Americas. So we're all a big family. We're all a big Native family. Us Mexicans are also Native. We are also Native Americans. We are indigenous people, and we're here to celebrate that part of us.
And I know that your family, too, has been featured in a lot of your videos. How special has it been to get to have them be a part of this with you?
It's been extremely special. My sister married a man of Purepecha descent, and she still dresses in her traditional attire. It's a region located right in the center of Mexico in the state of Michoacan. So not only do I embrace my Chichimeca descent, but I also feature other people from other tribes, from other nations, involving, in this occasion, my sister and my niece, who are part of the Purepecha community.
You've talked about your ties to Mexico. We know a lot of your content has talked about atrocities outside of North America, outside of what's happened to indigenous people in the United States or in Canada. What can we do to try to raise more awareness and put that spotlight on those people as well?
If anything, the best ways one could be an ally is by sharing the content of Native TikTokers, supporting Native TikTokers, supporting the issues that we face as Native communities as a whole, because a lot of the issues we often talk about within our own groups affect the population, the great majority of the population. The water that's being contaminated in northern parts of the U.S. also affects people down in the South and every other part of the U.S. So I think it's important for us to talk about these and celebrate each other.
Well, and obviously your heritage is pretty important to you. In this process where you've been sharing so much about where you come from, what makes you, really makes you, I guess I could leave it right at that. Have you learned anything about your own heritage that you were surprised by?
It was extremely surprising. I think it's been a spiritual journey, if anything. I've always celebrated my culture. My parents have engraved our traditions ever since we were children, ever since I can remember. So if anything, it's been a spiritual step by step. And right now I'm to the point where I'm looking forward to a bigger awakening. As Indigenous people, we are connected to spirits, to Mother Earth, and that's what I mean by this awakening that I'm hoping will come very, very soon.
I know a lot of people appreciate you shining a light on your culture, Juan. We appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
And before we go tonight, the image of the day. As Maggie Ruley told us earlier, protesters were out today in Glasgow as the climate summit focused on youth and empowerment. This rally, called Fridays for Future, comes as global leaders continue to meet. A reminder, one goal of the summit is for every country to commit to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And don't forget the first episode in our climate series, Saving Tomorrow, anchored by Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z, is coming up right after this. That's our show for this hour. Stay tuned to ABC News Live at all hours for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thank you for streaming with us. Have a great Friday and a great weekend.